The penthouse was supposed to be empty. Jay Park loosened his tie as the private elevator opened directly into his foyer, the Seoul skyline he'd left 4 days ago still sharp in his mind. The business trip had been cut short, negotiations collapsing into acrimony, requiring his return. His body still operated on Korean time, his thoughts half in English, half in his native tongue, exhaustion making everything feel slightly unreal. He froze. The security panel by the door glowed green. System armed, no breaches. But through the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city, he could see it. A thin line of light beneath the master bathroom door, cutting through the darkness of his minimalist space like a knife. Jay's hand moved to the small of his back with practiced efficiency, fingers closing around the grip of his Glock. He designed this penthouse himself, clean lines, open spaces, nowhere to hide. Hardwood floors that would betray footsteps, glass and steel and carefully curated emptiness. Every surface reflected the city lights below, making the intruding bathroom glow seem even more wrong. He moved through the darkness without sound, years of training overriding jet lag. His mind ran calculations. The security system showed no forced entry, which meant either a professional or someone with access codes. The positioning of that light suggested someone careless or desperate. His phone was already in his other hand, thumb hovering over emergency contacts. The bathroom door was slightly ajar. Jay kicked it open in one fluid motion, weapon raised, body angled behind the doorframe. A scream, high, terrified, distinctly female, split the air. She stood in the corner by the marble shower, clutching his designer showerhead like a weapon, water still dripping from the rainfall fixture behind her. She wore one of his silk nightgowns, the black one he kept for guests who never came, hanging off her thin frame like a costume. Her dark hair was wet, plastered to her neck. Her eyes were impossibly wide, the whites showing all around dilated pupils. "Please," she gasped, the showerhead shaking in her grip. "Please, I wasn't. Who are you?" Jay's voice came out cold, controlled, the tone he used in interrogations. The question broke something in her. Her knees buckled, the showerhead clattering to the tile floor as she slid down the wall. Sobs racked her body, deep, gasping things that sounded like they hurt. "I'm sorry," she choked out between cries. I'm sorry, I didn't know where else." She wrapped her arms around herself, folding inward. "Please don't call him. Please don't tell Marcus I'm here." Marcus Webb. Jay's finger eased off the trigger, though he didn't lower the weapon. Marcus Webb meant this wasn't random. Marcus Webb meant this was business, the kind that got complicated fast. He'd heard the name in certain circles, always attached to money, power, and barely concealed violence. "Look at me." Jay's voice shifted, still firm but less weapon-edged. When she didn't respond, he repeated it in a softer tone. "Look at me." She raised her head slowly, mascara-streaked face tracking upward until their eyes met. That's when he saw it, the way she held her left side, the careful shallowness of her breathing, the discoloration just visible at her collarbone where the silk had slipped. "Stand up," he said, lowering his weapon but not holstering it. Slowly. She struggled to her feet, one hand braced against the wall. As she straightened, the nightgown shifted, revealing a canvas of violence, bruises blooming purple and yellow across her ribs, defensive wounds on her forearms, the faint outline of fingers on her upper arm. Jay felt something cold settle in his chest, warring with the heat of sudden visceral anger. He'd seen injuries like this before. "How long have you been here?" he asked. 3 days. Her voice barely qualified as a whisper. "I'm sorry." "The door code. I saw you enter it once, at the gallery opening last month. I have a good memory for patterns. I shouldn't have—" "The gallery." He placed her now. Marcus Webb's companion, the one who'd stood slightly behind him all evening, barely speaking. An artist, he remembered. Someone had mentioned she was an artist. "You've been here 3 days without food." It wasn't a question, but she nodded anyway. Jay holstered his weapon and stepped back, giving her space. His mind was already working through the implications. Marcus Webb's woman, hiding in his penthouse, meant Webb would eventually come looking. The bruises meant Webb was the threat. The 3 days meant she was desperate enough to risk breaking into a stranger's home. "Please," she said again, the word barely audible. "I just need a little time, just a few days to think, to plan. Then I'll disappear. You'll never." 3 days. Jay interrupted, his voice flat. You stay 3 days. We figure out what happens after that when the time comes. He watched her process this, saw the disbelief war with desperate hope across her expressive face. She looked like she wanted to thank him, to cry again, to ask why he was helping. Instead, she just nodded, still hugging herself. Guest room is second door on the left, he continued, already moving toward the door. There are clothes in the closet that should fit. Lock the door if it makes you feel safer. Thank you, she whispered. Jay didn't acknowledge it, just walked out and closed the door behind him. In the hallway, he stood for a moment, listening to her muffled sobs resume. Then he pulled out his phone and walked to his office, the one room in the penthouse without windows. He scrolled through his contacts until he found the right name. Someone in Seoul who owed him favors, someone with access to information that didn't appear in official channels. The call connected. Jay spoke in rapid Korean, his words clipped and businesslike. Marcus Webb, American. I need everything you have on him, business dealings, associates, vulnerabilities. I need it yesterday. Mara woke to the smell of rice and something fermented, not unpleasant, just unfamiliar. She'd slept in the borrowed clothes, too afraid to be vulnerable even in sleep, and now they were rumpled and twisted around her body. The guest room was flooded with morning light, so bright it made her squint. The sounds coming from the kitchen were methodical, precise. The clink of dishes, water running, the soft thud of a knife against a cutting board. She found him standing at the stove in a white t-shirt and dark slacks, his hair slightly damp from a shower. The kitchen island was covered with small dishes. Banchan, she remembered from a Korean restaurant Marcus had taken her to once, back when he still took her places. Pickled vegetables, seasoned spinach, kimchi glowing red in a ceramic bowl. A pot of rice steamed next to a soup that smelled like the ocean. You're awake, Jay said without turning around, as if he'd sensed her presence. Sit. It wasn't a request. Mara slid onto one of the minimalist bar stools, her ribs protesting the movement. Jay set a bowl of soup in front of her, then a smaller bowl of rice, then began arranging the banchan within reach. I don't, she started. Eat. She picked up the spoon, her hand shaking slightly. The soup was clear with tofu and seaweed, simple but perfect. The first sip made her realize she'd been living on adrenaline and fear for so long she'd forgotten what actual nourishment felt like. Jay sat across from her with his own bowl, eating with the same precision he seemed to apply to everything. The silence stretched between them, not quite comfortable but not hostile either. Your coffee is terrible, Mara said suddenly, nodding toward the American drip machine in the corner. I mean, for someone who clearly has taste in everything else, that thing is a crime. Jay looked up, one eyebrow raised. You're criticizing my coffee? I'm just saying, if I'm going to be your uninvited house guest, I should at least make myself useful. I could teach you how to make a proper pour-over. She attempted a smile, the expression feeling strange and unfamiliar on her face. You know, as payment for not having me arrested. Something shifted in his expression, not quite a smile, but close. The corner of his mouth twitched. Deal. The moment felt fragile, like morning frost that would melt under too much attention. Mara returned her focus to the food, and they ate in companionable silence. Mr. Choi arrived at noon, a compact man in an expensive suit carrying a leather portfolio. He and Jay spoke in rapid Korean in the office, while Mara waited in the living room, trying not to listen, trying not to exist too loudly. When Jay emerged, his face was stone. Marcus Webb is exactly what you'd expect. Cartel money laundering. Mara's stomach turned. I didn't know about the cartel money, not until she stopped, wrapped her arms around herself. I took photos of documents in his office. That's why she gestured vaguely at her ribs. My phone is destroyed, but I backed everything up to the cloud before he found it. Jay's eyes sharpened. You have evidence. I don't know if it's useful. I'm not a lawyer, but I know what I saw. She met his gaze. Wire transfers, names, shell companies. I was going to turn it over to the FBI, but then he found out. Jay pulled out his phone. Marcus reported you missing yesterday, playing the concerned boyfriend. There's a police welfare check scheduled for tomorrow. They'll come to known associates, places you might run. We need to coordinate a response. What kind of response? The kind where you're voluntarily staying with a friend, safe and sound, and Marcus is revealed as a controlling abuser. He was already typing. I know people. The afternoon fell into an unexpected rhythm. Jay worked at the dining table, his laptop open to screens full of data and documents. Mara curled into the corner of his pristine white couch with a sketchbook she'd found in the guest room. Unused, probably decorative, but she couldn't stop her hands from moving across the pages. She sketched the city view, then the clean lines of the penthouse, then, without meaning to, Jay's profile as he worked. The concentration in his expression, the way he held tension in his shoulders. He caught her looking once, and she quickly flipped the page, heat rising in her face. "You're good," he said simply, nodding at the sketchbook. "I was. Before." She didn't elaborate, and he didn't push. Hours passed. The light changed. They moved around each other in the space, one bathroom, narrow hallways, the occasional accidental proximity that made Mara's breath catch. He was careful never to touch her, never to crowd her space. She was hyper-aware of every moment he came near. Evening arrived with Jay ordering Thai food, and Mara asked about the photos on the bookshelf, sparse but present. A younger boy with Jay's features. "Minho," Jay said, his voice softer than she had heard it. "My brother, he's at MIT now." "You raised him?" A pause. "Our father was assassinated when I was 17. Someone needed to." Mara set down her chopsticks. "I raised my twin brothers after Mom died. They were 12, I was 19. The words came easier than they should have. "I know what it's like to be a parent when you're barely more than a kid yourself." Jay looked at her then, really looked at her, and something passed between them. Recognition, understanding, a shared weight that needed no further explanation. On day 3, Mara's screams pulled Jay from shallow sleep, and he was in her room before conscious thought, weapon drawn, searching for the threat. But the threat was in her head, in her dreams. She was tangled in sheets, gasping, eyes open but not seeing. "Mara." He kept his distance, holstering his weapon. "Mara, you're safe. You're in my apartment. You're safe." She focused on him slowly, recognition flooding her expression, followed immediately by humiliation. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. Don't apologize." He stayed where he was, giving her space. "It's okay." But it wasn't okay. She was crying now, harsh sobs that sounded like they were tearing her apart. Her hands reached out, grasping at air, needing something solid. "Can you?" she choked out. "I just need—" Jay moved then, sitting on the edge of the bed, letting her come to him rather than presuming. She collapsed against his chest, and he wrapped his arms around her carefully, avoiding her injuries. She cried into his shirt while he held her, one hand stroking her hair with a gentleness that surprised them both. "You're safe," he murmured. "I promise. You're safe here." Eventually, the sobs subsided into hiccups, then into silence. She didn't pull away, and he didn't let go. They stayed like that until her breathing evened out, until the tension left her body, until dawn crept through the windows. Morning brought awkwardness. Mara couldn't meet his eyes over breakfast. More rice, more banchan, more of Jay's quiet domesticity. "Thank you," she finally said, "for last night, for everything." "Gwenchan Ayo," Jay said automatically. "What does that mean?" "It's okay." She tried to repeat it, mangling the pronunciation so badly that Jay's lips twitched. "Guanchanao." The twitch became a smile, then actual laughter, surprised out of him, genuine and warm. "Again," he said, softer now. "Guanchanayo?" "Better, but the emphasis is wrong." He stood up, moving around the island to stand beside her. "It's Guanchanayo. The guan is sharp, the rest flows." She tried again. He leaned closer to correct her, his hand hovering near her shoulder but not touching, his face inches from hers. The air between them felt charged, dangerous in a completely different way. A knock shattered the moment, a harsh rap that made them both jump. It sent ice through Mara's veins. She was halfway to the panic room before conscious thought, her coffee mug still in hand, her body remembering Marcus's fists before her mind could catch up. Jay appeared beside her, catching her wrist gently. "It's Minho," he said quietly. "My brother. Go to the safe room. Don't come out until I get you." The panic room was steel and silence, soundproofed but equipped with monitors showing every angle of the penthouse. Mara watched Jay open the door to a young man who looked like a softer version of him, same bone structure, but without the hard edges, the careful control. "Hyung!" Minho's voice came through tinny on the speakers as he pulled Jay into a hug. "Why didn't you tell me you were back from Seoul?" "Last-minute trip. Busy week." Jay's deflection was smooth, practiced. They moved to the kitchen, and Mara watched Minho's eyes scan the space with casual curiosity, landing on her coffee mug on the counter, the second plate in the drying rack, the sketchbook she'd left open on the dining table. "You have someone staying here?" Minho's tone was teasing. "The infamous Jay Park finally dating?" "Business contact. Temporary arrangement." Jay busied himself making tea, his back to his brother. "What brings you here? Don't you have midterms?" "Finished early, and you've been weird all week. Distracted. You missed our standing call Monday." Minho leaned against the counter, studying his brother with the kind of knowing that only siblings possessed. "What's the web situation everyone's talking about? Mr. Choi mentioned you were handling it." Jay's hand stilled on the teapot. "Nothing that concerns you. Focus on your studies." "I'm not a kid anymore, Hyung. I know what the family business really is. I've always known." Minho's voice was gentle but firm. "You don't have to protect me from everything." "Yes, I do." Jay turned, and even through the monitor, Mara could see the weight in his expression. "That's my job. That's always been my job." They talked for another 20 minutes about safer things, classes, research projects, Minho's girlfriend. But Mara saw how Jay kept positioning himself between his brother and the rest of the apartment, how his shoulders didn't relax until Minho finally left with promises to visit for dinner soon. When Jay opened the panic room door, Mara was sitting on the floor hugging her knees. She looked up at him with something new in her eyes, not fear exactly, but calculation. "What exactly do you do?" she asked. Jay leaned against the doorframe, considering his answer. Most people never asked directly. Most people were content with plausible deniability. "My family runs a syndicate," he said finally. "Import business on paper. In reality, money movement, protection services, information brokering. We don't touch drugs or trafficking, but that doesn't make it clean." He held her gaze. "The world I operate in is dark. Violent when it needs to be." Mara absorbed this, her artist's mind processing, cataloging. "But you don't hurt people for fun, for control. No. You don't make people small to make yourself big. No." He understood what she was parsing, the difference between Marcus's cruelty and his own capacity for violence, the line between power and domination. She stood, wincing slightly at her still healing ribs. "I'm not afraid of you, Jay. I'm afraid of going back to him. Those aren't the same thing." Something shifted in the air between them, acknowledgement, acceptance, a decision made. "Then don't go back," Jay said simply. "Stay. The 3 days are up. So stay longer." He pushed off the doorframe. "Stay until you're ready to leave, until you have somewhere safe to go, until we've dealt with Marcus." He paused. "Stay." The word hung between them, weighted with implications neither was ready to name. The self-defense lesson started in the living room that afternoon. Jay had moved furniture, creating space on the hardwood floor. Mara stood in borrowed athletic clothes, her body tense with anticipation. "Most self-defense is about buying yourself time to run," Jay explained, circling her slowly. "Your goal isn't to win a fight, it's to create an opening and escape." He demonstrated a basic stance, and she mirrored him, clumsy at first. His hands moved to correct her posture, palm on her hip to angle her body, fingers at her shoulder to square her stance. Each touch was brief, professional, but Mara felt hyper-aware of every point of contact. "Again," he said, demonstrating a palm strike. "From the heel of your hand, aim for the nose or throat." They moved through the techniques slowly. He taught her where to hit, how to break a grip, how to use an attacker's momentum against them. As they worked, the space between them became charged with something neither acknowledged. Bodies close, breathing synchronized, trust building through practiced violence. "Better," Jay said after an hour, and Mara realized she was smiling, her body remembering what it felt like to be strong instead of fragile. That evening, she painted for the second time since leaving Marcus. Just watercolors on printer paper, nothing fancy. But Jay watched from the doorway with an expression she couldn't read. When she caught him staring, he didn't look away. The next morning, Jay returned from an errand with 4 large boxes. Professional art supplies, oil paints, canvases, brushes of every size, easels, the kind of equipment Mara had once owned before Marcus had thrown them out one night in a rage over a painting he deemed too provocative. "This is too much," she said, her hands trembling as she opened the boxes. "Jay, I can't accept." "You need tools to work," he interrupted. "Not a gift, an investment." He watched her catalog each item with reverent fingers. "You're talented. That shouldn't stop because of circumstances." Mara looked up at him, tears threatening. "You see me?" "Yes," the word was simple, honest. "I see you." She insisted on cooking that night, real soul food, the recipes her grandmother had taught her before she died. Jay assisted with surprising competence, following her instructions as she talked him through chicken and waffles, collard greens, cornbread. "I raised twin brothers after Mom passed," she explained, stirring the pot. "Had to learn fast how to make food stretch, how to make a house feel like home when you're barely holding it together yourself. I was working 2 jobs trying to finish art school." She smiled at the memory, bittersweet. "They're in college now, both of them. I haven't talked to them in months. Marcus said they were poisoning me against him, that I needed to focus on our relationship." Jay was quiet for a moment. "In Korean culture, family obligation is everything. The oldest son carries the legacy, the responsibility. My father prepared me for it from the time I could walk." He measured rice with careful precision. "When he died, I had to become 2 people, brother and father. Sometimes I'm not sure which one I am anymore." "You're both," Mara said softly. "That's not a failure. That's love." They ate in comfortable silence, the food rich and warm, tasting like memories and new beginnings. Sienna arrived unannounced the next afternoon, Mara's best friend, the only person she dared to contact. She brought clothes, cash, fierce hugs, and worried eyes. "You're sure about this?" Sienna asked while Jay gave them privacy. "Staying here with him? I'm sure I can't go back to Marcus." "That's not what I asked." Sienna gripped her hands. "He's different from Marcus, Mara, but he's still dangerous. Maybe in different ways, but dangerous all the same. Don't mistake one cage for another just because this one has a prettier view." After Sienna left, Mara stood at the window, watching the city lights blur and sharpen. Different from Marcus, but still dangerous. The words circled her mind like birds of prey. In his office, Jay spoke in clipped Korean to Mr. Choi, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Marcus is demanding a meeting, says I have his property, wants it returned." A pause. "He's playing this smart," Mr. Choi said, sliding the letter across Jay's desk. "Public meeting, neutral ground, witnesses. He wants to look like the reasonable party." "Then we give him what he wants." Jay's voice was ice. "My restaurant, tomorrow night, 6 o'clock. Mara stood in the doorway, her hands clasped so tight her knuckles were white. "I want to be there." "No." Jay didn't look up from the letter. "Not out front, in the back office. I want to watch on the security feed." She stepped into the room, her voice steady despite the fear Jay could see in her eyes. "I need to see you face him. I need to see that he can't touch me anymore." Jay studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. "Back office. Mr. Choi stays with you. You see him coming toward the office, you go straight to the car, understood?" "Understood." The restaurant was one of Jay's legitimate businesses, upscale Korean BBQ in the city's financial district, the kind of place where deals were made over soju and galbi. Jay had cleared the main dining room, leaving only his own security positioned at strategic points, dressed as waitstaff. Mara watched from the back office, the security monitors showing every angle. Mr. Choi stood silent beside her, his hand resting casually near his concealed weapon. Marcus arrived exactly on time, dressed in an expensive suit that Mara recognized, the one he wore when he wanted to impress, to project power. He was flanked by 2 men who were obviously private security, though they tried to look casual. But it was Marcus's face that held her attention. The charming smile, the easy confidence, the mask he wore so well. She'd fallen for that mask once. It felt like a lifetime ago. Jay sat at the center table, a pot of tea in front of him, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp. He didn't stand when Marcus approached. "Mr. Webb." Jay's voice came through the speakers clear and cold. "Please, sit." Marcus's smile tightened slightly at the lack of deference, but he sat, waving his security back. Thank you for agreeing to meet. I'm hoping we can resolve this situation like reasonable men. Then let's be reasonable. Jay poured tea with steady hands. What do you want? My girlfriend back. She's unwell, unstable. She's taken things that don't belong to her, personal items, some documents. I'm worried about her mental state. Marcus leaned forward, the picture of concern. I just want to help her. Surely you can understand that. On the monitor, Mara's hands clenched into fists. Mr. Choi's eyes flicked to her, watchful. Interesting story. Jay sipped his tea. I have a different version. A woman with defensive wounds and systematic abuse injuries came to me seeking protection. A woman who has evidence of your illegal business dealings. A woman who is currently under my protection. Marcus's mask slipped for just a second, fury flashing across his features before the charm snapped back into place. You're being misled. She's manipulative, you see. She lies. She's probably already tried to... Careful. Jay set down his cup with deliberate precision. You're speaking about someone I care about. Choose your next words thoughtfully. The temperature in the room dropped. Marcus's security shifted uncomfortably, reading the change in atmosphere even if their employer didn't. Are you threatening me? Marcus's voice lost its smoothness, hardening into something uglier. Do you know who I work with? The people I'm connected to? Yes. Jay's smile was thin and dangerous. I make it my business to know. Marcus stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. You don't get to keep her. She's mine. She'll always be... His hand shot out, grabbing Jay's arm in what might have been meant as an intimidating grip. It was a mistake. Jay moved before anyone could process what was happening. One moment Marcus was standing too close, the next he was forced back, his grip broken by Jay's steady, controlled strength. Marcus lost his balance, dropping to his knees with a sharp breath, shock flashing across his face. Security stepped in immediately. Mr. Choi and his team positioned themselves with quiet efficiency, cutting off Marcus's men before they could take another step. From the back office, Mara watched, her hand pressed to her chest, heart pounding. Jay looked down at Marcus, not with anger, but with unwavering resolve. She's under my protection now, he said, his voice calm, certain. You won't approach her. You won't look for her. Whatever you think you have over her ends here. He lowered himself slightly, just enough for Marcus to hear every word. She's safe, Jay continued. And if you value your own future, you'll remember that. Marcus nodded quickly, any trace of confidence gone, replaced by fear and understanding. Get him out, Jay said quietly, and his security escorted Marcus and his men from the restaurant, still clutching his broken hand. Jay found Mara in the back office, still staring at the now empty monitors. Mr. Choi had given them privacy, closing the door behind him as he left. You saw, Jay said, not a question. Yes. Her voice was barely a whisper. I won't apologize for protecting you. He kept his distance, giving her space to process. But I understand if this changes things between us. If you need to leave, I'll arrange somewhere safe. Stop. Mara turned to face him, her expression complicated, fear and gratitude and something else wound together. I'm not afraid of you. I'm not even sure I'm disturbed by what you did. She wrapped her arms around herself. I watched him hurt me for months. I watched him break my things, my spirit, everything I was. And you broke his hand in 3 seconds, and I felt... She trailed off, searching for words. Relieved, protected. Is that wrong? Does that make me broken too? Jay crossed to her then, slowly, giving her every chance to step back. When she didn't, he took her hands in his. You're not broken. You're human. There's a difference between justice and revenge, between protection and cruelty. What I did was necessary. What he did to you never was. She leaned her forehead against his chest, and he held her while she processed, while the adrenaline faded and reality settled in. The restraining order was filed the next day through Jay's lawyers, ironclad, backed by evidence of abuse and witnesses willing to testify. Marcus would stay away or face consequences far worse than a broken hand. Life began to take on a new rhythm. Jay attended Minho's medical presentation at MIT, and Mara went with him, watching from the back of the auditorium as Jay's face transformed with pride. She'd never seen him look so unguarded, so purely happy. "You love him," she said in the car afterward. "More than anything," Jay admitted. "He's the reason I do all of this, the legitimate businesses, the careful operations. I want him to have choices I never did." The self-defense sessions continued, but now there was something different in the air between them. When Jay corrected her stance, his hands lingered. When she successfully broke his grip, they stood too close, breathing too hard. It was after one such session that it happened. Mara flushed with success, Jay watching her with undisguised admiration. She moved first, closing the distance, rising on her toes. He met her halfway, the kiss tentative at first, then deeper, confirming what they'd both been dancing around for weeks. When they broke apart, Jay rested his forehead against hers. "This complicates things." "Good," Mara said, smiling against his lips. "I like complicated." But complications were coming faster than either anticipated. Her twin brothers called, wanting to visit, excited about her new relationship she'd mentioned in careful, edited conversations. Jay's family elders summoned him to a formal dinner to discuss an arranged marriage they'd been planning, a strategic alliance with another family, arranged before Mara had ever entered his life. And Mr. Choi's investigation revealed something troubling. Marcus's cartel connections were deeper than expected. He wasn't just laundering money, he was embedded in an organization that didn't take kindly to disrespect or lost assets. "This could become war," Mr. Choi warned over dinner. "If they decide to make an example, to show that their people can't be touched, then we prepare," Jay said calmly. "We've handled worse. Not with civilians in your home, not with someone you care about at risk." Jay's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Late that night, Mara set up her easel in the living room, unable to sleep. She was mixing colors when Jay emerged from his office, exhausted and troubled. "Can't sleep either?" she asked. "Too much on my mind." He poured himself whiskey, watching her work from across the room. "Come sit," she said suddenly, gesturing to the chair by the window. "I want to sketch you." "Why?" "Because I need to capture this. You. The way you look when you think no one's watching." Jay sat, the city lights behind him creating a halo effect. Mara's charcoal moved across paper in swift, confident strokes, capturing the lines of his face, the weight he carried in his shoulders, the contradiction of violence and tenderness that defined him. The silence between them was intimate, comfortable in a way Mara had never experienced with another person. Just the scratch of charcoal and the quiet breathing of two people learning to be vulnerable together. "You're the first person who's looked at me like that," Jay said finally, his voice quiet. Mara glanced up from her sketch. "Like what?" "Like you see me. Not my name, not my family's reputation, not what I can do for you." He held her gaze. "Just me." She set down her charcoal and crossed to him, settling into his lap, his arms wrapping around her automatically. "I see you," she whispered. "All of you. The violence and the gentleness, the control and the chaos underneath. I see you, Jay Park, and I'm not going anywhere." The question came to Mara at 3 a.m, staring at the ceiling of the guest room she rarely used anymore. Is this safety or just a different cage? Jay had rules. Reasonable ones, she told herself. Don't leave without security. Don't contact old friends who might talk. Let him know where she was, always. Protective measures, necessary precautions. But Marcus had started with rules too, little ones at first framed as concern. Don't wear that. It attracts the wrong attention. Don't see her. She's a bad influence. Let me handle your finances. You're so stressed. She watched Jay work sometimes, saw the way he commanded a room without raising his voice, the way people deferred to him automatically. Power and control woven so seamlessly into his nature that he probably didn't even notice anymore. Was she just another thing he controlled? Another asset to protect and manage? Sienna's words played on repeat, different from Marcus, but still dangerous. "You're overthinking again," Jay said from the doorway, reading her expression with unnerving accuracy. "How do you always know?" "You get this look, like you're solving equations no one else can see." He leaned against the frame, exhausted from another late meeting. Talk to me. But Mara couldn't find the words to explain the fear that was slowly crystallizing in her chest, that she'd traded one prison for another, even if this one had better views and gentler hands. Jay felt her pulling away in increments, small withdrawals, subtle hesitations. He recognized the pattern because he was creating distance too, trying to protect them both from what he knew was coming. Every moment with her made him weaker. In his business, weakness was death. He caught himself thinking about her during negotiations, checking his phone during meetings, rushing home instead of handling problems personally. Mr. Choi had noticed. "You're distracted," his second-in-command said bluntly over coffee. "Distraction gets people killed in our world." "I'm handling it." "Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're choosing a woman over family interests. The elders are already questioning your judgment." Jay stared into his cup, seeing the truth he didn't want to face. Mara was safer away from him. His world, his enemies, the violence that lived in the margins of his carefully constructed life, it would eventually touch her. It always did. He should send her away, set her up somewhere safe, somewhere Marcus couldn't reach. Give her money, protection, freedom. It was the logical choice, the right choice. But every time he opened his mouth to suggest it, the words died in his throat. The twins arrived on a Saturday afternoon. Dante and Devin, both 22, both carrying the easy confidence of young men who'd never had to question their place in the world. Mara had mentioned that she'd protected them from ever knowing how hard things had been after their mother died. "So you're the guy," Dante said, sizing up Jay with the frankness of a protective brother. "I'm Jay." "We know who you are," Devin added. "Googled you. Impressive real estate portfolio for someone our age." Jay caught Mara's warning glance and smiled slightly. "Family business. I had a head start." They settled in to watch basketball, Celtics versus Lakers. The twins were easy company, teasing Mara about her terrible sports knowledge, including Jay in their banner with the natural inclusiveness of people who'd been raised to be kind. They ordered pizza. They argued about players and statistics. It was so breathtakingly normal that Mara felt her chest tighten with something like grief. This could be her life. Not hiding, not calculating risks, not jumping at shadows, just this. Her brothers, someone she cared about, pizza and basketball, and the comfortable chaos of family. The possibility terrified her more than any threat Marcus could make. After the twins left, promising to visit again, asking Jay if he'd come to their graduation in the spring, Mara stood at the window, arms wrapped around herself. "What happens when Marcus is handled?" she asked without turning around. "When the threats are gone and the danger passes? Do I leave?" Jay came to stand beside her, careful not to crowd her space. "Do you want to leave?" "I don't know what I want anymore." Her voice cracked. "He took that from me. The ability to trust my own judgment, my own desires. What if I only think I want this because I'm scared? What if I'm just replacing one dependency with another?" "Then take time to find out." Jay's reflection in the glass was careful, controlled. No pressure, no expectations. Figure out who you are when you're not running, not afraid. Then decide. Mara nodded, not trusting her voice. Behind them, the city glittered with 1,000 decisions other people were making, people who knew their own minds. The family dinner was Thursday night. Jay told her Tuesday, his tone carefully neutral. "It's just elders, formal, boring." "Am I invited?" The pause before his answer told her everything. "You're not. They're traditional. Meeting you needs to be strategic." Mara nodded like it made sense, like being a secret didn't sting. But after he left, she sat in the empty penthouse feeling like a mistress, a side piece, something shameful to be hidden away. Jay returned after midnight, his shoulders tight with tension. She could read from across the room. "How was it?" "They want me married to the Choi family daughter by spring. Strategic alliance, good for business." He poured whiskey with shaking hands. "I told them I'd decide my own life." "And where do I fit in your life, Jay?" The question came out sharper than she intended. "You have two worlds, the one you show your family and the one where I exist. Which one is real?" "You are." He turned to face her. "This us is the only real thing I've had in years. But changing a family's expectations, breaking generations of tradition, it takes time. I'm choosing my own life. That includes you. Just give me time." time. Always more time, more patience, more waiting. Mara nodded, hating the doubt that coiled in her stomach. Mara packed at 2 a.m. while Jay slept, exhausted from another 18-hour day trying to shore up family support and track Marcus's movements. She moved silently through the penthouse, gathering the few things that were truly hers, leaving the expensive clothes and art supplies Jay had bought. The note took 3 attempts. Can't let anyone else get hurt because of me. You, Minho, my brothers. Marcus will come for everyone I care about. This is the only way to protect you all. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for everything. I'm sorry. M. She was at the elevator when Jay's voice stopped her. Don't. Just that one word, quiet in the pre-dawn silence. Mara turned to find him in pajama pants and nothing else, his hair disheveled, his eyes devastated. Everyone around me gets hurt, she said, tears streaming down her face. You, Minho, my brothers. He's going to destroy everyone I love, Jay. I can't watch that happen. I can't be the reason someone else gets hurt. Jay crossed to her slowly, giving her space to run if she wanted. Then stay and fight. I'm not strong enough. You survived months with Marcus. You broke into a stranger's apartment and trusted a man who could have hurt you. You're learning to defend yourself, to stand up, to believe you deserve safety. He took her bag gently from her hands, setting it aside. You're the strongest person I know. Don't run now. What if I'm not worth the cost? The question broke something in her chest. What if everything you're risking, your family's approval, your business relationships, Minho's safety, what if I'm not worth it? Jay cupped her face in his hands, thumbs wiping away her tears. Let me worry about what you're worth to me. Your job is to decide if I'm worth fighting for. His voice dropped to something raw, unguarded. Are we worth fighting for? Mara leaned into him, her forehead against his chest, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. Around them, the city was beginning to wake, traffic sounds rising, light creeping across the sky, the world spinning forward whether they were ready or not. I'm terrified, she whispered. So am I. Jay held her tighter. But I'd rather be terrified with you than safe without you. Stay. Please. The elevator dinged behind them, doors sliding open to an empty car that could take her away, give her distance, maybe keep everyone safer. Mara looked at it, then at Jay, then at the penthouse that had become something dangerously close to home. Okay, she said finally. I'll stay. But we fight together. No more protecting me by keeping me in the dark. If we do this, we do it as partners. Jay pulled back to look at her, something fierce and proud in his expression. Partners. Partners, she agreed. The elevator doors slid closed on the escape she didn't take. Whatever came next, they'd face it together, even if it destroyed them both. The conversation happened at 3 a.m, both of them unable to sleep after the surveillance photos, after the threats. They sat on opposite ends of the couch, the distance between them feeling like miles. I love you, Jay said into the darkness, the words stark and unadorned. But I won't trap you. If you need to leave, for your safety, for your peace of mind, for whatever reason, I'll still handle Marcus. Your freedom isn't conditional on staying with me. It's yours, regardless. Mara pulled her knees to her chest, making herself small. I'm terrified of losing myself again, of waking up one day and not recognizing who I am because I've molded myself into what someone else needs. Then don't mold. Jay turned to face her, his expression open in a way she'd rarely seen. Be exactly who you are. Fight with me when I'm wrong. Tell me when my protection feels like control. Push back. He paused. Every day you choose. I'm not asking for forever. I'm not asking for promises. Just tomorrow. And then tomorrow again. One day at a time until you know what you want. And if what I want changes, then it changes. And we deal with it. He reached across the space between them, palm up, offering. I'd rather have uncertain days with you than guaranteed years with someone who stays out of obligation or fear. Mara took his hand, their fingers intertwining. Just tomorrow, then. Just tomorrow, he agreed. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for the following Thursday. Mara made the decision Tuesday night, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. I want to testify, Tell my story, all of it. Jay nodded slowly. It will be brutal. His lawyers will come after your credibility, your character, everything. I know, she met his gaze. But I'm tired of being silent. I'm tired of letting him make me small. They prepared like soldiers going to war. Jay's team compiled evidence, financial records showing Marcus's control of her accounts, witness statements from gallery employees who'd seen the bruises, documentation of his cartel connections that painted him as dangerous beyond just domestic violence. Mr. Choi worked 18-hour days, building a case so airtight even Marcus's expensive lawyers would struggle to dismantle it. Mara rehearsed her testimony with Jay's attorney, reliving each moment of trauma with clinical precision. The first time he hit her, the escalating control, the night she finally ran. Each retelling scraped her raw, but she pushed through, determined to reclaim her narrative. The night before the hearing, she couldn't eat. Jay sat with her in silence, just present, just there. "What if I freeze?" she whispered. "What if I get up there and can't speak? Then we regroup. We try again. But you won't freeze." He took her hand. "You're not the same person who ran into my bathroom 3 weeks ago. You're stronger now. You know it, even if you don't feel it yet." The courthouse was all marble and judgment, voices echoing off hard surfaces. Mara wore a simple dress, conservative, professional, borrowed from Sienna, and kept her hands clasped to stop them from shaking. Jay sat directly behind her, Minho beside him, both in dark suits. Their presence was a lifeline. Marcus sat at the defendant's table in an expensive suit, his broken hand in a cast that he'd clearly been instructed to display, prominently. His lawyers were a pack of sharks in $1,000 suits, already circling. When Mara took the stand, her mouth went dry. The lead attorney, a woman with sharp eyes and sharper questions, didn't waste time. Mara told it all then, every detail she'd been preparing, every moment of abuse documented and dated. The gallery employees testified. A previous girlfriend of Marcus's came forward with her own story. The pattern emerged, clear and damning. Then, Jay's team dropped the evidence bomb. Financial records showed Marcus had been skimming from his cartel employers. The cartel connections were the killer detail. Marcus wasn't just an abuser, he was a liability to dangerous people. The kind of liability that made permanent solutions attractive. The judge granted the restraining order without hesitation. More than that, she opened a criminal investigation into the assault charges, the financial crimes, all of it. Marcus sat pale and still as his world collapsed, his expensive lawyers already whispering about damage control. That night, a message came through Jay's network. The cartel had cut Marcus loose. He was on his own, exposed, facing charges that would put him away for years. He'd become more trouble than he was worth. Marcus made his choice. By morning, he'd fled the country. Mexico first, then somewhere further, somewhere without extradition treaties. The threat was ended, but the damage remained, carved into Mara's bones like scars. She painted that night with a violence that was almost frightening to witness. Jay had set up her studio in the spare bedroom, and she attacked canvas after canvas with brutal strokes, dark colors, sharp edges, images of cages and breaking chains and faces screaming without sound. Jay watched from the doorway, not interfering, just present. She painted for hours until her hands cramped and her shoulders ached and her eyes burned with exhaustion and unshed tears. Finally, when the light began to creep through the windows, she collapsed, just folded in on herself, the brush clattering to the floor, her body giving out under the weight of everything she'd been holding. Jay crossed the room and picked her up carefully, carrying her to bed like she weighed nothing. He tucked her in, smoothed her hair back from her face, pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Stay," she mumbled, already half asleep. So he did, sitting in the chair beside the bed, keeping watch while she finally rested. Morning came soft and bright. Mara woke to find Jay in the same position, dark circles under his eyes, clearly not having slept. "You didn't sleep," she said, her voice rough. "Couldn't." He smiled slightly. "Old habit. Keeping watch." "It's over." She said it like a question, like she needed confirmation it was real. "The threat is," Jay agreed carefully, "but you're not okay yet." Mara sat up, pulling her knees to her chest, studying him in the morning light. "Will I be? Okay, I don't know." He leaned forward, taking her hand. Trauma doesn't just disappear because the source is gone. You'll have good days and bad days. Days when you feel strong, and days when you can't get out of bed. Days when you trust yourself, and days when every decision feels impossible. His thumb traced circles on her palm. But I'll be here while you figure it out, however long it takes. Just tomorrow? Mara asked, echoing their conversation from days before. Just tomorrow, Jay confirmed, and then tomorrow again. As many tomorrows as you need. She pulled him into the bed beside her, and he went willingly, wrapping his arms around her while she finally let herself cry, not from fear or pain, but from relief, from exhaustion, from the overwhelming feeling of being safe enough to fall apart. Outside, the city moved on, indifferent to their small drama. Marcus was gone, fled to whatever desperate exile awaited him. The cartel had moved on to more profitable concerns. The legal system ground forward with its investigation. But in Jay's penthouse, in the morning light, two people held each other and breathed and chose tomorrow. It was enough. For now, it was enough. The dinner party was Sienna's idea. A proper introduction, she'd called it, though everyone knew it was really a vetting. She arrived with wine and suspicion in equal measure, her protective instincts still on high alert. Jay was awkward in a way Mara found endearing. He'd hosted business dinners 1,000 times, but this was different. This was personal. He fussed over the food, worried about the temperature, asked 3 times if the wine was right. He's nervous, Sienna observed, watching him retreat to the kitchen for the 4th time. He wants you to like him. Do I? Mara smiled. You will. And she did. Somewhere between appetizers and dessert, between Jay's careful questions about Sienna's work and his obvious devotion to Mara's comfort, the walls came down. Sienna leaned back in her chair, studying them with the trained eye of someone who'd seen her best friend broken and rebuilt. He looks at you right, she said finally. Not like you're something he owns, like you're someone he's chosen. And you, she reached across to squeeze Mara's hand, you look like yourself again. Like the person I knew before Marcus. Actually, better, stronger. Later, after Sienna left, Mara found Jay on the balcony, the city spreading out below them. She approves, Mara said, sliding under his arm. Good, I was worried. Why? You've faced down cartel members. Those I understand. Protective best friends are more terrifying. The meeting with the Korean family elders was formal, tense, everything Jay had warned her about. They sat in a private room at one of the family's restaurants, surrounded by generations of tradition and expectation. Mara wore conservative clothes, kept her hands folded, answered questions in careful English, while Jay translated when needed. The disapproval was palpable. An American artist, no family connections, no strategic value. They'd had plans for Jay, the arranged marriage, the alliance. This girl with pain under her fingernails and trauma in her recent past wasn't part of the design. She's my choice, Jay said in Korean, his voice firm. I've done everything you've asked, built the legitimate businesses, protected the family interests, raised Minho properly. This one thing, who I choose to love, is mine. The silence stretched. Finally, his grandmother spoke, her voice sharp but resigned. You are your father's son, stubborn, impossible. She studied Mara with ancient eyes. You make him happy. The words came easier now. 3 weeks after the hearing, 1 month after deciding to stay beyond 3 days, Mara said it clearly, without hesitation. I'm staying. Not because I'm scared to leave, not because I have nowhere else to go. Because I choose to. They were on the couch, her feet in his lap, a documentary playing that neither was watching. Every day? Jay asked, echoing their earlier conversation. Every day I'll choose. That's the point. She sat up to face him properly. Not a promise to stay forever because I can't predict forever, but a promise to choose consciously, daily, to be here. Then I'll choose you back, Jay said simply. Every day, consciously, even on the hard days. Especially on the hard days. Especially then. A beginning. Chosen daily. Painted in imperfect strokes, still figuring out the middle part. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.